Hey guys, welcome back to DC Extra. My name is Chris. Today we're going to break down episode 8 of season 3 of Stargirl. Before getting into it, make sure you've watched this episode as there will be some major spoilers ahead. This episode is titled Infinity Inc. Part 2, which is a continuation of the last one, but I forgot to mention in the last breakdown that the title is a reference to a superhero team from the comics that is also called Infinity Inc. The team consisted of mainly the children of the Justice Society of America, kind of like a Young Justice but for the Justice Society, which is basically what the JSA is in Stargirl. This episode starts on Pat and the Shade in the Shadowlands, where they ended up at the end of last episode. The Shade explains that when Todd's darkness interacted with him, it transported them into the Shadowlands due to a feedback-like effect. They attempt to escape the Shadowlands, but are met with some resistance due to the darkness infused in Jenny's Green Lantern ring. Back at Helix, we see people being rushed into rooms due to an alarm that was no doubt triggered by Todd. We see a variety of names posted on the doors of these rooms, some of those being Teo Jones, Penny Dreadful, Kakaro, and of course Todd Rice, who we have been following last episode. Teo Jones and Penny Dreadful are direct references to supervillain team Helix from the comics. Where Helix is a building in this universe, the Helix from the comics was a group of 6 mutated children that were each experimented on in the womb by a scientist named Dr. Benjamin Love. The members of Helix are Penny Dreadful, who has energy absorption abilities, Critter, who was seen in the room with Teo and has superhuman strength, enhanced sense of smell, and genius level intellect, not to mention he looks like a dog. Baby Boom, who can explode things with her mind, Arak Windwalker, who has aerokinesis abilities, Teo Jones, who can generate force fields, and the final member is Mr. Bones, who, as I explained before, has cyanide touch, enhanced strength, and stamina, and of course invisible flesh, which makes him appear as a skeleton, giving him the name Mr. Bones. I think that the introduction of these characters could be setting up a Helix vs JSA fight in the near future, as the villainous group were enemies of Infinity Inc. in the comics, who in this show are the JSA. We also saw Kakaro, who in the comics is a man-shark and the cousin of Yolanda. Also, something of note about Yolanda from the comics is that she was experimented on by Dr. Love, but developed her abilities later on in life. Her powers were feline related, which is fitting considering she is Wildcat, so it's possible we get to explore her true origins in future episodes along with her getting powers. However, whether that pans out or not, we'll have to wait and see. After an explosion caused by Jenny coming into contact with Todd, Courtney wakes up in Louis Love's office, who works at the Helix Institute, possibly related to Dr. Love or just this show's adaptation of him. Louise explains that they are helping Todd to control his powers to prevent him from encompassing the whole world in shadow. Courtney explains what the Shadowlands is and how she believes Pat has gone there. The mention of this place comes as a shock to Louise, which shows that they may not have a good idea how to help Todd after all. Courtney notices a camera in the office where she is now locked, and we see someone is viewing the footage, possibly the same person as the other cameras in Blue Valley. Back in the Shadowlands, the Shade explains to Pat that he must control his emotions in order not to be overrun by his regrets. They agree to keep on the move, and after going through a door, run into a construct of the Gambler. After getting irritated by this construct, they run through another door which takes them to the pit stop, where Pat's father greets them. Jenny wakes up in a locked room and attempts to use the ring to escape, but it has no effect. Through a speaker, we hear someone explain to Jenny what is going on and that she and her brother can never be together, probably to avoid the explosion that occurs every time they touch. Pat's father reminisces on his past, and let's just say he was less than kind in doing so. In another construct, the Shade sees his dying sister and attempts to run, but due to the ring's influence on the Shadowlands is unable to. Pat then knocks open the door and a surge of green energy is on the other side. Courtney talks to the camera in the office, theorizing that the people running this camera also set up the ones in Blue Valley. which leads to the responsible party being Luis and Mr. Bones, who I have theorized was behind the cameras all along. Mr. Bones then walks into the office to greet Courtney and explains his origins and powers. Explains that if they cannot suppress Todd's powers, it could spell disaster for everyone. Courtney suggests that Jenny and Todd's connection could be the one thing that helps him gain control. Mr. Bones agrees to give her theory a shot. They then go explain this to Jenny, who agrees to help her brother. Back in the Shadowlands, Pat is tortured by the hurtful words of his father, but then the ring's energy, in the form of what appears to be fire, burns the house they are in. Upon Jenny getting closer to Todd, he gets more and more unstable. But after going in to talk to him, his powers make them both share a vision where they talk to each other. Jenny explains that the two of them are connected. Upon holding out her ring, the darkness from inside rejoins Todd, and the two of them are able to hug without causing an explosion. Pat and the Shades, still caught in the house fire, run out the door despite the dangers to the Shades interacting with the ring's energy outside the door. Luckily for them, they end up back in the real world due to the darkness leaving the ring and Todd gaining control of his powers. The five of them then leave and on their way out talk to Luis, who denies them being responsible for the cameras, which still leaves the question as to who is. Mr. Bones then suggests that the people at Helix form a team of their own, which is referring to the previously mentioned Helix team from the comics. However, the way this story ended suggests that they may not be purely villainous, but who knows their true intentions. Pat suggests that the Shade helps Todd control his powers, due to the similarities to his own. Todd agrees to let the Shade train him. However, Jenny seems reluctant due to her travelling to New York. She says her reason for going to New York is to find Sandy Hawkins, who is Wesley Dodd's nephew, and from the comics, also his sidekick. But I don't think this part is true in this case. If you don't know, Wesley Dodds was a member of the JSA known as the Sandman. He was referred in a previous episode this season, and I went into greater depth to his backstory then. So if you want to find out more, watch my breakdown of episode 2. Jenny explains that Sandy has powers like his uncle's, and has agreed to help him control his nightmares. The Shade reluctantly agrees to head to New York with Jenny and Todd, but in doing so leaves Pat and Courtney stranded at Helix, as he transported them there in the first place. Courtney realizes that she should continue to help the people in Blue Valley, where she was previously considering giving up. Pat still has troubles coming to terms with the things he heard in the Shadowlands, and Courtney questions who is responsible for the cameras, considering that Helix is supposedly innocent. Accompanied by some ominous music, we go back into the tunnels under Blue Valley, where the cameras are located. We get our best look at the person responsible. However, we still get no face and no other way to figure out the identity. But I can say that they do seem angry at Rick due to the threat from last episode. And that is where this episode ended. Quite an interesting one. In terms of my rankings compared to the previous ones, I think the last one was probably a bit better, but this is definitely a close second, and at the very least third. I do like how they ended the Jenny storyline, and it still leaves an opportunity to continue it and explore even more characters related to the JSA. And of course, the threat of the mysterious character behind the cameras is still there. Hopefully we get to find out more on that next episode, but from the looks of the trailer, it doesn't really seem that focused on that. But you can watch my trailer breakdown once that is published. But anyway, until then, I hope you did enjoy. If you did, consider subscribing for more content like this. And until next time, this has been Chris, and I'll be seeing you.